Welcome everyone to another rendition of our Advisicon webinars. I'm Tim Runcie, the CEO and President of Advisicon, and I'm actually really excited to do this webinar today for you. There's a lot of great new features coming in the project management, work management, and especially for today's topic, the collaborative work management. We are going to finally be able to start showcasing some things that I've been sitting on for almost a year and a half that Microsoft has been working on. So without further ado, let me jump right into this. If you've never met Advisicon or any of our staff, we do this quite regularly. In fact, I encourage you guys to all check out either our learning management channel, which actually has free PDUs, as well as the YouTube channel, maybe where you found this at. So fortunately, that is a thing that we will continue to be doing and kind of giving back to our community of practice. So today's agenda is to talk about something called collaborative work management and why is that important? Why is that an actual thing today? And then I'm going to drill down into some of the newest technology tools that actually are designed to be part of collaborative work management. There's a new tool that has emerged that Microsoft is rolling out, and we'll talk about that as well. A couple points, though, is that I'm not going to get too deep into the technology demos. We're going to have entire webinars just geared around some of the features or capabilities of the tools. But I encourage you to use this kind of as our roadmap to lay the foundation and perhaps things that will help you maximize your team and your personal productivity. So let's start with collaborative work management. It's kind of interesting is that in the past, in fact, from the pandemic era to post-pandemic era, and even we talk about work that is in different places, organizations are finding that resources are no longer just co-located in the same building. And so in the past, you would be able to say, well, listen, I could do face-to-face interactions, or maybe I'm doing something we call asynchronous interactions. We have different times where we are looking at distributed Teams channels. We could also get into the fact that we have people who are remote, that we are distributing videos and training content with. And so if we think about this quadrant of how people communicate, how they collaborate, or how they share information, all four of these are in play today. So whether it's remote or co-located or synchronous, meaning that we're doing it at the same time, or asynchronous, meaning you're watching a meeting or a Teams meeting or a recording, or you've got a Zoom meeting that was put together and set aside, or you're distributing documents and information that you want people to work in independently, but be able to manage. All of this is a kind of a new world for many of us to increase our productivity. And so we all feel the personal pressure from balance of work, the balance of home life, and also with an amazing amount of digital tools, it is somewhat overwhelming. And so this is where we talk about using a work management system, or at least collaborative work management, meaning that we can work in different dimensions using tech. And then again, Microsoft's goal is to remove the friction from the tools that people are working with. What's great about that is that both Microsoft and non-Microsoft organizations are also wrestling with some of the great and some of the problems that are there. So there's some great tools. There's things that are designed to work together. And so regardless of what tech platform you end up, this collaborative work management is the thing that we are going to work through today. And then we'll drill into some of the techs that will support that. So thinking through this cloud as a connected system, there are many ways that you can, what we refer to as, do anything that you need to do, whether it's a team or anything that you or your team needs to accomplish. We talk about task management, work management, project program and portfolio management, but all of that really is a subset of us managing information. So whether it's using Project for the web and then connecting that through either a Power App to Power BI or reporting, or perhaps you're using a Dynamics 365, sometimes referred to as D365. And then we have partners that maybe you have vendors that come and go from your organization that help you, or they're deploying tools or systems that are off the Microsoft platform. All of this is integrated through essentially what we call Office 365 or the Microsoft platform. Now, if you look at the PowerPoint that's kind of showing here, you'll notice on the lower right-hand corner something called Viva. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. In fact, we'll have many webinars about this particular product that's coming in here. But it refers to goals and insights. So if you haven't seen some of the Viva insights that come out that says, hey, we've observed these things in your Outlook, your email, we actually have artificial intelligence that's saying, look, we can kind of help prioritize or look for data to help you be more productive with your work with. So as we think about seamlessly working together, these are some of the techs right now that we're going to get into. We'll talk about OneDrive, which refers to, in many cases, how do we share and distribute documents? One thing that's really emerging and I'm very excited about is Microsoft Lists. And the reason I love lists is that, yes, it kind of is a drill down into what we call SharePoint lists, but it's beginning to bring the power of Excel into the ability to have lists and then tapping into simple flows or the ability to have automation or notifications that are in place. For those of you that have seen Office 365 Planner, and again, the grow up story from Kanban boards, task lists to full project schedules are all helpful. But the part that's new, and that's something that we'll talk about at the end of our session today, is how do we do strategic planning? How do we make sure our teams are aligned with what is the goal for this sprint, or what is the goal for this project, or what are we trying to accomplish, and what are the moving parts that go together? So whether you've done balanced scorecards or OKRs, or you've done a Hoshin diagram, or you've spent time doing strategic planning or tactically doing strategic planning, the idea of galvanizing your teams to work through the information will be helpful. So let's jump right in here. In fact, let's talk about OneDrive. And then notice I put in there parentheses SharePoint. SharePoint is almost everywhere. In fact, I remember when SharePoint first came out, people were like, well, wow, collaboration with my project management tools? What is this new thing? Well, SharePoint is no longer just a thing. It is now under the hood supporting a lot of elements. And what's great about OneDrive is that while it's a different view, there's a lot of investment that Microsoft is making, and you'll find others in how we manage our work, how we manage our documents, where and how do we distribute information. In fact, there are new home pages. There are filters that are going to make it a little bit easier to work with. You can quickly create favorites for your documents and then share those in terms of contextual menus. So in a kind of a broad brushstroke, there's a lot of new features, including the ability to have apps in Teams, which is where a lot of organizations are shifting to because they can communicate, they can collaborate, they can put their documentation there, but they want to synchronize maybe with a OneDrive or a filing system that helps them. And again, whether it's app support or accessing through a mobile device, that synchronous connection or asynchronous distribution of information, the idea is that it won't matter what device you're working from, what browser you go to, you can actually find and connect to that information. So enhancing and sharing the collaboration with team members, and of course, the ability to search and find information was one of the problems that the old file shares used to have. So quickly at the top here, we're going to see some new things. That number one is that OneDrive, of course, has the ability for us to quickly have lists of files, quickly find what's new or perhaps the file activities in a directory. Maybe you want to create a recording, like for example, this session, we're going to record it. It'll drop into Stream and I want to distribute that to folks. Yet I'm still going to work in a SharePoint-like capacity to say, look, I've got a file, it's an object, I want to distribute that. And I can directly share those information from inside the application. For example, if I'm in Excel, I can share that. Or perhaps what I may want to be able to do is create a connection to Teams and have a folder available. What I get really excited about, and something that we'll talk more about, is the ability to actually share live in a Teams meeting the file and let people edit inside of that meeting the actual file when I didn't have to go out and send or share a link. So some of you probably have done this where you actually said, hey, I've got a file, I stuck it in OneDrive, I want to quickly share that link. I can make it edit, make it review only, make it basically a link to that. You can go to that file and just click on it and basically distribute or share that. And what's helpful about that is that as we move into the permissions mode, we can allow people to make edits, but we can retain visibility and copy of that. We'll also be able to actually have custom views that allow you to sort and filter a lot of your documents in OneDrive so that you can share and find that information and make it easier to work with. And of course, the idea is that if you've got your favorites, you can certainly flag and mark these together. Here's an example, at least in this diagram, where you have filters on the right-hand side. A lot of these are, born in what we call the SharePoint environment, but OneDrive really also says if you've got a lot of information, we need to make that quickly and easily accessible. We need to be able to find it or search or look through that. Just like you do in Teams, we have contextual ability to type and search or look for specific options, not just within the folder itself. So fortunately, SharePoint has got stronger with its search and its crawl abilities. But one of the areas that's new that's coming out is if you're working in Citrix and you want to connect to OneDrive, the idea is that if you are using external applications or if you're using remote or local apps, these, especially if you're offline, will actually upload and load and synchronize with OneDrive when you get back to internet access. So for organizations like nonprofits that might be out in the field, they may be in a third world country or in a location that doesn't have cell access or have something, you can pull these offline, continue to work. And when you do connect back to the internet or you connect through a mobile connection, these files will stay synchronized and updated directly automatically. So adding this is going to be helpful. Now, OneDrive is kind of the behind-the-scenes conversation around sharing documentation. But one of the other emerging areas is something called lists or Microsoft Lists. I think at Microsoft, they just call it list. So in terms of sharing this is that you want to be able to track. You want to view information. You want to say, hey, look, whether I'm on a mobile device or I want to kind of monitor what people are working with, there's a significant investment here in this product. And I think you're going to find this very helpful in keeping your collaborative work across your teams all in one place. For example, some of the things that we're going to see is that we've actually have super powered templates, the ability to spin up a list of a specific type, have the preset columns as well as custom flows already built for notifications, alerts on due dates or activities that need to happen. You can certainly work on any mobile device. And of course, some of the web improvements is that the ability for us to really see the undo and redo are helpful, including in a Kanban board view. In fact, let me just pop over here. I know I've got some different elements to showcase. So let's find a view here. So we're talking about OneDrive real quickly. The ability to add a shortcut, for example, to a Teams folder, or I can pin access to that directly is helpful. But as we go into Microsoft List, whether we want to do it from a browser view, or if we want to bring up the desktop application, the idea is that you can have these flagged or marked as favorites, just like we've done in Planner and other tools. But the idea is I have a list of activities here that I can certainly add or modify my columns. I have group settings, and I can also do conditional formatting. What's helpful about this is that we have this to different views if you want to customize your own and pick and choose not just by the name or the standard view, but the idea of having access to this. What I'm showing you right now is actually a SharePoint site that does an intake process of projects. For example, if you have a new idea and you want to submit that for project approval, a lot of times you might use Microsoft Forms to drop the information into a SharePoint list. Well, Microsoft Lists actually can look at that as well as help you kind of synchronize or manage these, including if you want to start these off with a new list or a new item you can add to the list. Or if I go back up here, I can actually start a brand new list and I have a series of templates. In fact, you can draw right in from Excel. If you've got massive lists they've been working with, you can migrate those forward. So what's exciting is that you can do issues tracker, you can do asset management, you can even do travel requests with notifications. But some of the templates behind the scenes are all set up, as well as the idea of having flows already pre-built for you to work with are going to be very helpful as you guys begin to manage and coordinate those applications and things that you're managing directly in the list that you were using in Excel, or perhaps you had scattered SharePoint sites. Continuing with some of the ideas that, yep, you can start new list. You actually can pick and choose the features that you want and even set your due dates, as I was talking about. There are different views where you can create, again, manage your lists directly in a kind of a visualization from a list or a kind of a what we'll call a board view, or you can move that into a grid view, which might be a little bit easier, especially if you have lots of different activities or elements that are happening inside the list themselves. One of the things that was requested very commonly is that when people build lists, it was hard to go back and find out how to delete these. Literally now you can actually go in and create a view. You can also quickly delete those, and I'll show you a screenshot of that in a moment. But the idea is that be able to spin up a list, modify and build quick views, or even perhaps move into a calendar view where you're looking at activities or things that are going on directly. All of these are kind of different ways of viewing information and activities that are coming from one or perhaps multiple lists together. So as we manage the columns, which happen to be the backbone of what you do in List, it's easy for us to see the same features or functionalities that we had before, including the fact that the enhancement like lookups or choice or text or multi-value are helpful. And the idea is, again, in the lower right-hand corner here, you can see as you just click on your list, you can choose the settings, or you can do it from the home page to say, look, I want to remove this. I'm done using it for now. And whether you're working in a mobile environment, all you have to do is tap and edit from an Android device. In fact, what's kind of fun is that the tablet or an Android, you can download the application right from the Google Play Store and continue to work with this. So create from scratch, tap to edit, basically work through these. And depending on what your account is, basically it'll synchronize as you work inside of those. So as we're thinking through some of the views of List, you not only can monitor in that collaborative space people who are working or editing inside of those. So for example, you have a calendar view here where you can see in the corner who's actually in there modifying or editing in real time. So that synchronization of having people working in multiple places or multiple items you can actually manage and view, including if you like that Kanban board, kind of an agile view where you can drag and drop and move these around, are very helpful. So the list roadmap, in fact, we're going to see a lot more around this coming, is that there are organizational templates. You're going to see more of these. In fact, back when Microsoft Project Desktop was the only project scheduling tool, there was a request for people to build templates and then share them to Microsoft so that people could quickly upload and go, I don't have to type or invent these from scratch. We can actually just pick from a list and have them available. This is where the value of having all the pieces beginning to connect, including flows with the templates, is where Microsoft is really picking up momentum using lists. So approvals, lookup calendar support, you have calendar views. We also have the ability to definitely connect and comment through a mobile device, which is where a lot of people who are traveling say, look, I just need a simple list. I'm just going to scroll through, tap and touch. So if we think in terms of this being part of our collaboration, a list is in many cases where people will start. Here's a checklist. Here's things that we're working on. But if we think about that project program and portfolio management approach that says, hey, teams are collaborating and they're working on tasks, they're working on work as a collaborative group, there are more things that come together. And so having this as one of your tools that says has a lightweight tool, I can have lists. Do I need a formal schedule? Maybe not. But the idea of whether you're doing team collaboration, planning, and you want to create visibility, the idea is that the project technology stack across Microsoft 365 has a lot to share. So I usually show this in conversations with customers and sometimes with even the Microsoft teams to talk briefly about the layering of how we get things done. So on the bottom, we talk about low-level complexity, meaning how complex is the work that's happening? And then are you just doing it yourself, or perhaps you're doing it with a group of people, or perhaps you have a very formal project management process? Microsoft has done a great job of creating a continuum of stair-stepping tools, including dropping in lists and collaboration management through Microsoft Teams, SharePoint, OneDrive together. But the idea is that people work on tasks, teams work on work together. And at some point with Project for the Web, or we talk about project program and portfolio management, you can grow all the way up into an enterprise application on the Dynamics platform called Project Operations. We talk about booking. So there's some great things that are happening. Again, Microsoft has more than 20 million users and over 10,000 customers using these project techs. But what's really helpful is to see some of the changes that are coming in the project space as a collaborative environment. And again, remember, not everybody needs to be in the formal project management tools. They've got stuff to get done. So if you haven't seen Microsoft's Planner tool or Office 365 Planner, you can quickly develop and design these. In fact, we've got many webinars on how to do this. But the idea is that the grow up story might take it from a list, from a planner Kanban board into a schedule where you actually can do the same thing doing Agile. Or perhaps maybe you want to work through a checklist of items that say, look, I actually have accountability of resources. And if something slips, I want to know what downstream gets moved. List tools don't do that. Relational databases do. And that's the fun part of working through some of these. So we're going to talk more about some of the teamwork, the planning, the labels, the visibility, and of course charts. In fact, I'm going to just hop out and show you guys. So if I jump into Project for the Web, in fact, let me just refresh my view here. Some of the things that we're looking for is not just to start off with, say, hey, I've got an overall schedule, but the idea that I can actually continue to evolve this. One of the limitations is that this used to have a limit of 500 rows. Now we have removed that limit, and Microsoft says you can add 1,000 tasks. In fact, I'm sure that will grow over time. But whether we're looking this in a view that says, hey, I've got a timeline view where I can increase and notice that the schedule will ebb or flow. I can add the same labels and tags that we've had in Planner. In fact, that's part of that grow up story, is that I can create and name these. So purple might be something that says, hey, as we're editing or modifying these, I may want to say purple in my list here, or pink might have something different, but I may want to give it a different name. So if I come over here and say purple might just be, hey, let's go ahead and say this is PMO work. Whoops, purple PMO. As I hit enter here, I can do my grouping, my views, and add these at any time. So again, adding the labels to the list allows us to manage that. Creating checklists inside of the task, as well as linking dependencies and attachments, all native, and it's all web and browser driven. Where I get excited about is also some of the things here, and one element that we're going to see a little bit later on being turned on is we'll talk about goals. But if you want to see charts of what's open, what's past due, what's being worked on, or maybe you're managing people, just looking at that stack ranking of, do I have too much applied to some of our resources, we can actually look and view these, including switching back to a board or a grid view that says, okay, lose the timeline, but I need to be able to visualize our elements. In fact, I'm going to show you a couple new features of the columns that are going to come around this. But remember, this is about collaborative work management. So whether I started in Planner and I promoted a project, or I'm working directly here, these tasks are flowing into a central repository. And so if I like that Kanban-esque board view where I can drag and drop and move things around, and it looks like everything's past due on my schedule, the idea is that I have an area that I can invite people to look at and view. What's even more exciting about this and some of the innovations is the ability for people to get an assignment. And let me say this very clearly, to have an assignment in a project schedule and be able to view and update that without having to go buy a license for Project for the Web. So there's some capabilities here that are going to say, look, we can actually remove the barriers to licensing and let people collaborate where they need to without letting them have full access to the entire file and perhaps making a mess of things as you're working. Again, looking through some of the options of charts, people, or the timeline visibility, this is part of that collaboration story. And so whether I started in Planner where I might have just a simple list of, here's my checklist, here's the things that are done or not done, and I can drag and move these around. The same thing that we saw here in managing this level of detail is also, of course, embedded in Project for the Web. It just now has a relationship and a dependency. Now, moving through, there's some additional exciting things that are coming. So one of the things that Microsoft is talking about in their roadmap is the ability to ensure that these tasks that come from Planner, that will come from lists or come from different places where you're working and managing tasks, Microsoft To Do, can actually flow into one place. And so if I bring Microsoft Teams open here for just a moment, again, I can always drop a project schedule directly inside of a Teams channel. In fact, that's the great thing about it, is I can add these directly, have it refresh and synchronize, and then I can start seeing the same information that's here. But let's say, oh, thank you so much, balance my team workload. Let's say that I need to see all my tasks in one place. Over here, if you haven't in Microsoft Teams added some of the different apps that are available, you'll see that there's plenty of things that you can pick and choose from. One of those, in fact, in my environment here, is I've actually clicked on these, is added something called Tasks by Planner and to do right here, task. Let's see if I can click on it. There you go. If I bring this up, task by planner and to do, we're going to say that the Microsoft project for the web tasks are going to flow directly in here. So as you do at mentions and you create tasks in different places, it can be a bit overwhelming. So having access to this centralized is going to be an important part of helping people stay on top of work, as well as collaborating and seeing these together. I'll be back here a little bit more because I want to come back and talk about the power of not just connecting teams or drilling right into the files section here where I can actually say, oh, by the way, I want to add a shortcut to OneDrive where I can actually look at this in a much more conducive file experience, or perhaps maybe I want to just launch right into SharePoint. But the idea is that information in our work and collaboration continues. So with the roadmaps that are available in terms of improved sprints, we're going to see some of these rolling out, as well as the ability for us to talk about Microsoft Viva and goals, connecting it right to our project. Again, also helpful. Now, this roadmap used to have dates on it, and I think they just kind of grayed out some of the dates because this is a fluid, evergreen environment in Office 365. But the idea is we think about backlogs, people views, and we're beginning to look at some of the other dependencies. All of these are part of that roadmap story. And some of these, if you don't see them in your tenant, will be turned on. They'll be coming in, rolling out fairly quickly. In fact, the idea of upgrading Planner to Project to migrate it directly, some of these you're going to see certainly in September of this year. Or if we move forward, we talk about connecting Viva Goals, which is a new product directly into these. Microsoft is on a weekly basis putting these out there. So check the posting for the roadmaps that are available, including, in fact, this screen here that I'm showing you is we have color coding, grouping our board views, as well as, in fact, let me just zoom this for you guys. In the view here is our ability to add goals right into our project schedules. So something that says not just making sure that we have the right information that we're working with it, but we can actually customize or take and create graphical indicators or views to see this information. Since it's all in Microsoft 365, in terms of the environment, the Dataverse allows us to create Power BI reports and connect to those, but also to take those files from a project schedule and literally drop that right back into Teams. So if we're thinking in terms of visibility of details, some of the snapshots or baselines, or the ability to look at that information from the schedule, these task and task information are available and are connected, and you can actually surface those into a single view. There's a lot more, and of course, I'm doing an overview of some of the things I've been just sitting on for a long time. So I have two more things to drill into. Number one, where do you learn more? Microsoft has some great tech communities out there. They have feedback. If you want to check out our website, we certainly have things on our YouTube channel and our LMS channel, and there's plenty more. But if you take a look at this screen here, there's plenty of websites to go check these out. Try these free trials. Basically give them a shot, see if they work and how they'll work together. I think you're going to find that very helpful. So as I conclude today with the final tool, something called Viva Goals, this is an exciting feature which really starts bringing together what's called the OKR framework. We talk about OKR, objectives, key results, right? The idea of saying, look, I have an objective, one high-level objective, and then what are the result statements that we're trying to work towards? For those of you in technology, you may have remembered when you sit down and maybe use a, we'll call it a use case scenario. You might create test scripts or define your requirements from telling a story and writing it. Well, the idea with an OKR is that, hey, listen, we have an objective, and then these are the results that we're trying to accomplish. There may be many ways to get there. So as we bring those together in terms of looking at the goals that flow to your everyday work to a high-level objective, this is one of the reasons that sprints are so successful in Agile, is that we hyper-focus on what we want to accomplish, the highest value first. And whether you're running your business, running your team, or just helping you stay on track with all the things that are going on, this is a new product that Microsoft went through an acquisition and brought into their fold. So as we think of the integration of tech and scalability and then project management and technology, you can get very overwhelmed. In fact, this is a flow chart we put together to help people kind of go from bottom up or top down and work their way through that process. But Viva Goals really allows us to kind of start and launch this. In fact, let me bring up a website here real quickly for you to see. that when we come out here, if I'm looking at our lists and our goals, is that if you want to try this, there's a 60-day free trial. It is a different license SKU. It just doesn't come free with Office 365. But the idea is that you can get in here and start trying these out to make sure, hey, listen, when I start with my goals and I work my way back to whether it's project or the environment that I'm working with currently, is that I can actually align. Here's the goal. Here's what we're trying to accomplish, including even as you start and launch Microsoft List, or you start and work with your Microsoft project schedules. These templates allow you to begin to define these and make sure that the work that you and your teams are collaborating on are aligned and driven together. Again, Peter Drucker said that which gets measured gets done. And so if we set a goal and then we figure out what the result statements are, this is the foundational principle of strategic planning. And whether you do it daily or tactically, or you do it as an organization, Viva Goals, very helpful to help you begin organizing in a very lightweight approach, put those together. So you notice this window is just showing it in Microsoft Teams, including looking at your planning periods and your work activities. But stay tuned more. There's going to be a lot more coming around this product. There's some fun things that you'll be able to work with, and stay tuned. We'll certainly have more videos on that very specifically. So I appreciate your time today, and I'm thinking through the collaborative work summaries that number one, OneDrive, Teams, SharePoint all work together. In fact, the barriers to creating a list or quickly connecting your team channel to a SharePoint OneDrive list has been removed. Things that'll make it much easier to manage all those documents and files. Microsoft List continues to get better. What's exciting about that is that you have a longer term investment that Microsoft's making that says most people do manage with List. Whether you're using it as a scratch pad or collaboratively you're pulling your team together, maybe we're not into the formal project management, but we really need to keep track of things that are coming in. Whether it's an intake process for ideas or it's a working checklist that we want to work from, you have a grow up story. And you can certainly start with List, grow to Planner, and even see in the project technology space where you can move that pendulum forward, going right from Planner right into Project for the Web, which also is the kernel or the engine of the scheduling in some of the enterprise tools that are available. Managing resources or monitoring what's getting done, also helpful. It's hard to use, and you certainly need project views that look at those Kanban boards and the different views that say, let's manage by people, let's look at the assignments, or just for you. Going back to that Microsoft Teams window that said, hey, look, when I was in Teams and I was bringing up this information, I really wanted to go and see what are all these assignments that I'm getting? Can I pull them into one place? And again, that task by Planner and To Do, very helpful in terms of our management of that. And again, I'm excited about Viva Goals. There's a lot more here. Again, it's in the early initial releases, so be looking for that. But the idea is to align your OKR, strategic goals, work and tasks for projects, and help people know what they're prioritizing their time for. So again, stay tuned. There will be more webinars coming. It's a lot of fun. Just to wrap up here, I just want to make sure that if you find this and you haven't and you need PDUs from the PMI perspective, our learning management channel and Thinkific at Advisicon, you can watch these same type of videos. In fact, I encourage people for free, jump in there, take a look at that. We'll also have many more videos on our YouTube channel, just making these available for you. But in the meantime, I just appreciate everyone's time today and how much there's just so much going on, but very excited to be looking at some of the capabilities allowing you to simply collaborate, manage your documents, manage your work and your tasks, and do so certainly on the Microsoft stack, as well as bringing in non-Microsoft technologies, folding those into those teams' environment. I hope this was helpful for you, and I look forward to possibly talking to you. If you guys have questions, feel free to reach out anytime, follow me, or send me a note. Hope this was helpful, and have a great rest of your day. Bye now.